the average retention for an employee, the average amount of time that an employee stays at a practice is 1.5 to 2 years, which is not that long. And if you think if it takes 6 months to get someone, 6 months or longer to get someone like with a full caseload, that's 6 months that you are spending money on them, that they're not bringing any money in for you or minimal. And then turn around in a year, you have to do that again. That's crazy.
Today, we are talking all things onboarding, retention, and hiring with Bosco. Bosco is a company that helps therapy practices with their organizational systems. And what better system to start with than the one that impacts you almost the most from day one? Hiring, firing, retention. We don't really talk about firing. We talk about getting that first step right. And I'm so grateful for Brie and Allison for coming on today. We talk about things like company culture. What do you do in your first 30 days? How do you help people on board and so they don't feel like a checklist? That's the worst feeling. So you're really going to enjoy this conversation. You're going to learn something about hiring, onboarding, and retaining your best therapists. Before we begin, there is a slight audio issue in the conversation, but the conversation's completely listenable to, and it doesn't detract from the great content. So I decided to keep it in just so that you get the full picture. Now let's listen to our conversation with Bosco. Hello, and welcome back to the Scaling Therapist Podcast. If this is your first time, I'm James Marland, and this is the show where I help you take your clinical wisdom into online income. Today, I am thrilled to have two guests with us today from Bosco, and it's Brie Chrisman, the CEO, and Allison Dixon, the operations manager. And today we're going to talk all about hiring and culture. Hello, and welcome to the show.
Hey, James, good to be back. I'm very excited to talk about this.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is great because this is one of the topics I love. Brie and I were talking about systems last time they were on, and we started talking about hiring and culture and just how important getting the right people in the right seats are for your company and how it can make and break your job, or at least make it more enjoyable or less enjoyable. And so I wanted to bring them on to talk about this important topic. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to pretend that we're just sitting down for coffee, and I just asked them, so what do I need to do to become a group practice? I'm a solo practitioner. I want to hire. I want to become a group practice. What do I do? So can you help us go through that? What do you consider when you're starting to hire for a group practice?
I'm going to let Allison take this one, but I just first want to say congratulations, because that's a huge step toward your growth, toward what you want to build. I mean, when someone goes into therapy in general, you want to create a space that feels right for you to take care of people and to support people. And so the fact that you're going from solo to group, you want to extend that care, you want to make an impact in more people's lives. And that's awesome. And that's, you did not become a therapist to run a practice, to run a business, but guess what? That's part of the package. And that's why we're here. So, but Allison is our amazing ops manager at Bosco. She is our HR guru. And so I'm just going to pass it off to her and she can go to town.
Yes.
So, hey, Allison, welcome. So what do you do at Bosco?
I am the operations manager of Bosco. So I have the pleasure of working not only with our internal team and growing our company and building a beautiful company culture, I also get to help our clients with this as well, and guiding them through building their practices and helping them run their practices efficiently and with a little less of a headache than they would have on their own.
Yeah, and hiring is one of those major growth bottlenecks, especially if you're in demand and you're helping people. So how do I hire my first therapist? Like I'm doing well. People are coming in. I might have a waiting list, and I'm thinking I need to expand, but I really, as Brie said, I got in to help people. I didn't necessarily know how to hire, how to run a business, multiple employees. What do I do?
The first question that you have to ask yourself, or I'm going to recommend that you ask yourself, is why do you want to own a practice? Why do you want to be a practice owner? I think that is a question that we often kind of skim over because we are so excited to start a practice and build this, exciting business where you're helping your clients. You mentioned having a wait list, right? So you are eager to get started and it's a goal that you've had and the dream that you've had. But we get lost in all of the things that we need to do. It can be very overwhelming, which is sort of where Bosco comes in, right? Is to help with that. But I think the biggest question you really got to sit with is why do you want to be a practice owner? Is it to develop young therapists and sort of be like this training practice, right? Giving them kind of a fresh ground to start to get that experience. So what are other reasons you've seen?
Being able to make a bigger impact in a specific area, in a specific community. We have a couple clients that focus on marginalized communities and have very specific areas that they practice in. And so creating creating a space that's safe for those communities and it's open and honest and frankly closing a gap in that care too.
Mm.
People who just have the entrepreneur drive, honestly, that want to that which honestly, to be fair, we don't get a lot of therapists that are like, I want to run a practice, like I want to run a business and be a
Yes.
therapist. It's more I want to be a therapist and I want to make a huge impact. And because I want to make a huge impact, I have to have a group practice and I'll just figure it out as I go. Which no hate, that's how everyone starts a business. But I think Allison, you're right. And knowing what your goals are and not just, oh, I'm going to start a practice because that's the natural next step, like a group practice, because you're already a practice owner. Even if you are the sole person at your company, you are a practice owner already. And so if you're just starting a group practice because it's the next natural step, I would definitely take a second to be like, okay, what are my actual goals? What do I want to do? And so that really, if you've gotten to that question, you're like, okay, no, I know what I want to do. I know what my goals are. It definitely includes group practice ownership. That I'm going to kick it back to James's initial question of, okay, what's next?
One of the current books I'm reading is The Science of Scaling by Benjamin Hardy. And
Good
he
book.
talks about your goals focus your present behavior. And if you have a big goal, it limits the other choices that you make. So if your big goal is to, let's say you want to make $200,000 a year, bring home $200,000 a year. That's your big goal. You're making like 60 now or something, and you want to bring it, you want to double or triple what you bring in. A big goal, that seems like a big goal to me if you want to do it in like 3 years.
Yeah.
So what do you got to do to get there? Well, you can't have multiple paths to get to that goal. You have to have a singular path that guides your behavior today, not like a 10-year goal. I love the book. The book is great. And it's not like, oh, in 10 years I'll do it, because 10 years is too far. So what do you got to do in the next 3 years to hit this big goal? And so to your point, Allison, setting up why you want to do this is not just, it is something we skip over, but then it leads to paths that won't get us there because we just don't know what our yes is and what our no is. We don't know where the boundary is and what can I do and what is going to help me get there. So
Yes.
I would say having 20 people in your practice will probably get you to that 200 or even more thousand goal, but that's way different than having a money goal. Your your
Yeah.
your
Absolutely.
your path is going to be different. So I loved your first point of setting up your goals and why you do this, and that we often skip over it because we don't think it matters, but it's a big difference on how you're going to get there. So
Absolutely. So I think what we've seen is we've seen successful and thriving practices, but they're dealing with a retention issue. And I find that it circles all the way back to the elementary question of why do you have a practice? Why did you start this practice? That is the thing. That is the basis of your company culture. So you can
Mhm.
set all of these financial goals. You can say, I want to scale to having 20 therapists, in my practice in a year and 2 years. But if you don't know why you started the practice, when you're building that team, you're going to see some misalignment happening. And then you're going to see that lack of retention. You're going to see the turnover with your employees. So it's
Mm.
about figuring out your why and carrying that into your hiring process. Because if you know your company values, you know your company's mission, right? Your practice's mission, your practice's values, you're going to be able to hire in a much more specific and intelligent way, in a way that's going to set your company up for like real, true longevity. So, yeah, I would say that is a huge question. That sounds so basic, but it really has one of the greatest impacts over
Yeah,
time
because
when
it
you
ripples,
start the
as you were
hiring.
saying, it ripples through who's going to be attracted to your practice too. Like if you have your mission and vision and value set up and say, this is clearly why we're doing this, you're going to have a better chance of attracting the right people when you send out those clear signals. And it all goes back to why you're doing it.
Absolutely. And I think this goes into building a real true HR. You may think, okay, I want to be a practice owner. Or I am a practice owner. I'm solo right now, but I want to grow my practice. It's very easy to skip over, right? Your practice handbook and filling in those spaces of what is my mission? What are my values? What are my goals? It's very easy to just skim over that. But I think starting with a solid human resources, like a hub for your human resources of knowing, okay, I mean, down to like having a time off policy, right? It
Do,
seems so
do I need to have these
logistical.
all done before I hire anybody? Remember, I'm the new therapist. I got to have a handbook. Like I got to
It's
have policies before I even
right.
hire people.
Yes, how daunting,
Oh,
right?
it sounds like so much work.
So much work. We're living in a time though where we have so many resources at our fingertips where it's really just about starting. I would say it's just getting something out there, getting some basic structure. It doesn't need to be perfect, right? Like just starting is a huge piece. And then as you go into the hiring process, being very knowledgeable on what you need a compliance standpoint, right? What type of therapist do you want to bring on? What is their licensure? Taking a look at your wait list, you mentioned, right? You're a therapist with a wait list and you need to grow your team quickly. Hiring therapists that not only are in line with your vision for your practice, but also making sure that they are going to serve your client base. I mean, that is an ultimate goal, right? Is to serve the clients.
So I'm always, this is why Allison is our people person, because she's all people ops. She's amazing at culture and leadership and making sure those mission and vision and values match what the practice is doing. And then I'm in the background being like, details and rules. And like, we need to get, and that, not that, Allison makes sure all of that is done. She keeps me in check and everything as well. But I'm just like, okay, we need compliance, we need licensure, we need CEs, we need to make sure that you know what the supervisory rules are in your state if you are bringing on pre-licensed clinicians. There there are so many random nuanced rules and laws in mental health in every state. Like we had one for one example, we had one of our clients is an LCSW and she's a PLLC in New York State, and found out after she had had a psychologist under her supervisory for an entire year that she was not allowed to with her specific PLLC, even though everyone on the board and everything signed off on it. And so they were threatening to take this person's whole supervisory year away. It just, like, who would have thought of that, especially because all of the board signed off on it and everything. So, like, I know that's very overwhelming and that's a very specific instance, but so many of those things of you need to not only know the compliance from the therapy side, but also from the HR side. You need to know what you want your commission structure to be. You need to know whether you want to hire them as a W-2 or a 1099. And that's a great question for an accountant. You need to have actual contracts. So hire a lawyer. It doesn't have to be you don't have to be spending thousands of dollars, but you do need to have an actual contract, and you need to know you might not need to have like time off policies right off the bat, but you need to have policies of commission and all of that, and knowing what the role from a logistics standpoint will look like. And then you can, take it from there. Highly recommend hiring one person at a time and seeing how it goes. Don't try to hire
Yes.
four people at a time, because that will always end in disaster, even
Yes.
as a seasoned therapist or seasoned business owner. I mean, it's just never a good idea, because then you can't give the time and attention to those people to onboard them successfully, to make them feel supported, to give them the resources they need. Also, you're going to burn yourself out and make your life miserable, and nobody wants that. So, as much as you have a wait list and you're gung ho ready to start this group practice and bring someone on, don't just hire the first good person. Hire the person that's really going to make an impact, that fit all the qualifications of what you need, but also vibrate, because you're going to be working together, even if it's telehealth. Our entire company is virtual, and yet we focus very strongly on company culture, because virtual, it's even harder to have that company, for lack of a better term, company culture, say it again.
Yeah. There's
And
no
it's
water
it's
cooler.
so important.
It's hard to make water cooler moments. It's hard to
Yeah.
like check in. Oh, you were late today. You look rushed. Anything I can help you with? You're like, you don't know. Like you can't
Yeah.
see any of that. You can't, I miss birthday
Yeah.
parties really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
The donuts in the
Donuts,
break
coffee.
room,
Yep.
and yes. I mean, we're all sitting here with our coffees, but like, you don't know what pants I'm wearing. I mean, we
Nope.
don't know. You don't know if I'm fidgeting over here. You don't know if I'm super stressed out. You don't know if my desk is a mess or not. It is, for the record. But, but yeah, it's when you have, whether you're in person or telehealth, it's so important to make sure that you get along with that person, that you vibe, that you have similar values, that they can basically drink the Kool-Aid of your business too, because as you're filling their caseload, as they're filling their caseload, that's another thing you have to think about, is who's doing the marketing. You want to make sure that what they are doing aligns with your company and what you are doing, because then it just makes everything smoother and easier, and makes life better for not only you but your clinician, and then your clients feel that too.
Do you have steps for reviewing resumes? Do you have steps for interviewing so you make sure you're not just like, oh, I feel good today, or I have more energy today. They seem to be like they have more energy. I feel like we're vibing. And then, a month in, you're like, oh, what did I even see in this person? Do you have ways to help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have broken it down into, I would say, about like a three-step process, really depending on the practice. Of course, there's the initial application, right? Which is getting your resume sent over, a cover letter, filling out all the details about your licensure status, where you live, all the details. So that way you can easily kind of filter out some things, right? There are just some non-negotiables when hiring that you have to check those boxes. And so that's a very easy way to figure out, okay, is this someone that I want to sue? Is this someone that I want to meet with? We've seen a lot of success with step number two being a video, like a self video interview, and
Oh,
going
they
through.
they send you a video that you watch.
Yes. So
Oh,
we
that's cool.
actually,
Why do you do that?
yeah, because it really gives us an opportunity to kind of see them. Well, one, you get to see them in one light where they're a little more comfortable because it's not a live interview. They're getting to, especially if it's a remote practice, they're getting to mess around with some technology, right? Like telehealth, we want that to go
The
smoothly.
technology
The
gate.
technology piece is
Yeah.
huge, especially if you're doing a lot of telehealth in your practice. And then getting to see their personality, getting a vibe check, getting to see how they respond to different questions, hearing about their experience. You learn so much through that. And quite honestly, it's going to filter out anyone who is just like not ready, who's not there for the right reasons, who didn't read a little bit about your company or your mission, your goals, your values. It's going to like weed out, some folks that maybe just like aren't right or aren't ready or are in it for the right reasons, who are not genuinely excited about what you're building.
Yeah, somebody who's not excited won't even make a
Do it.
video. They'll be like,
They
why do
won't.
I even, what am I
Yeah.
doing?
We've
Yes.
implemented that at practices because we've had such success with Bosco. Not only are we looking at their answers, because every time you have a question, even if it's an open-ended question, you you have a sense of what you're looking for in an answer. But I'm also looking at, did they answer all parts of the question and did they do it in the time that I gave them? Like if I
Mm,
tell you do a 2-minute video, don't give me 30 seconds and don't give me 5 minutes. Like do as close to 2 minutes as you can, and if you can't answer the 2 questions I give you or the 5 questions or whatever, then you can't follow simple directions and that's a huge red flag. And
yeah,
going
I
off,
love
go ahead.
this for the virtual assistants or people who are doing like administrative work
Yeah.
because time, timeliness, technology, did they read and understand the
Yep.
directions? And did they answer, what is their attention to detail and doing the questions? It hits so many
Yeah.
necessary things for when you're assigning tasks and handing off responsibilities. It's a very clever way to get a lot of information in a very brief amount of time. And
Yes.
all you have to do is it 30 seconds? Well, then maybe I don't need to watch this one. I don't, you're like, how long do you have? Yeah, that's cool. So you do that to help filter. Are there other things you do in the filtering process?
I think being very intentional about the questions that you're asking of them, even in that video interview, being specific about it so that you're gathering as much data, honestly, information that you can from them at that point. But the round three, I will say, is very important, is actually getting to, because sometimes you see a video, you watch a video interview and you're like, well, it's on the cusp. I'm not really sure if this is going to be a good culture fit. I'm not exactly sure if this is going to be a good fit for the clients on our wait list, on my wait list. But step three is so important. I mean, sometimes we've seen it, Brie, where like, not quite sure, but you know what? They're checking all the boxes. Let's meet them. Let's schedule that meeting. And sometimes that will answer your question, whether that's green flag or red flag for what you're looking for, but also having the opportunity to set the tone for how you work and what you're looking for, set the tone for your practice. Because they're also, especially if you're interviewing with someone who is feeling like such a great fit, they're also interviewing you too. And that's something you have to keep in mind. It can be a little daunting, especially if you're just starting out growing your practice or hiring your very first clinician. I would say that's the time to create a culture of transparency. I think that's the
Yes.
time.
We're
What do you mean?
laughing.
What do you mean by that? And how do you do that?
I think you lead by example, to be very honest about where you're at in your process. I think this really comes in handy when you are starting out, to be very transparent and be honest and say, this is where I'm at and this is where I'm looking to go. And X, Y, and Z may not be where I want it today. I may not be able to offer as many, maybe a healthcare benefit right now, but that's part of the goal and the dream. So, finding ways to, it can be intimidating. Interviews are a little scary. They're nerve wracking. I think that's the time to level it a bit and to model transparency.
If you start out with trust, that
Right.
that's the best foundation for a profitable, productive, smooth working relationship.
And
Absolutely.
if you start with authenticity too, I mean, I will say our most recent hire, she's been with us since September, October of 20. So she's been with us for about 6 months and is like fully drank the Kool-Aid. She's like, I'm in for forever. I had to take an interview from my car from a playground because my kids were off from school and they were going crazy. I was literally sitting in my trunk of my car while my kids were screaming for snacks in the parking lot of a playground. She was like, I love this vibe so much. And like that's that, but I'm like, that's also me in half of our team meetings because my kids are crazy and I have, it is what it is. And we lead by example, we lead with authenticity and in a human first light. And so like if that is not your vibes, and that's probably not the best company to work to work with. But if you show that from the get-go, you know, it's so not only does it make people feel more comfortable and like, oh, I can be myself, it gives the right, like Allison was saying, they're interviewing you too. So they have, if you just put up a front of like, I'm super professional and this is me and I dress in suits all day and
Yeah.
you don't, then that's not, it's not gaining that trust and that authenticity.
I really connect with that because for the longest time I hid I hid the Legos and stuff on my back desk and like my plant, like I have like funny plants and
Love it.
just a couple transformer little robots. Anyways, I I hid that because I was like, oh, I want people to think I'm professional. I am professional, but I'm
Yeah.
also fun.
You're so
So
fun.
I want people when they see this, if they wanted the super professional, they will attract, they will connect better with somebody who is authentically, buttoned down, super
Yeah.
A personality.
Yeah.
But if they want to do, a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of fun while talking about business, while talking about growing, then they will be attracted to me. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing in your hiring process that you're talking about. If you present one thing in the hiring process and you're something totally different, and they discover it, they're going to question a lot about should they be here. And I think that's, as we're talking about that, that's probably where some of the hiring, the mismatches come because you're not who you misrepresented yourself a little bit in the process.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
When it comes to employee retention in the therapy space, there's a stat that essentially says the average retention for an employee, the average amount of time that an employee stays at a practice is 1.5 to 2 years, which is not that long. And if you think if it takes 6 months to get someone, 6 months or longer to get someone like with a full caseload, that's 6 months that you are spending money on them, that they're not bringing any money in for you or minimal. And then turn around in a year, you have to do that again. That's crazy. And so that comes down to that misalignment. It comes down to not knowing your goals, not knowing your mission. It comes down to not leading with human first intentions and leading with authenticity and trust and empowering your team. And also to what you said, James, about the misalignment with clinicians, if you're also like that with your clients, that's an issue with client retention too, which means that's going to be, it's
Mhm.
just going to snowball into, your clinicians not having clients. And then that there goes your whole group practice. And that then
Mm.
goes into marketing. And this is why operations just touches everything, because really, if you are fully aligned on your company brand, if you want to call it that, your mission, your values, all of that, when it comes to your employees, when it comes to your marketing, when it comes to your clients, when it comes to everything, if you know who you are and where you want to go, where you are right now, that will shine through everything as long as
Mm.
you're authentic.
All right.
Oh,
Do you have a quick tip on onboarding, and then then we'll end with creating that cult? Brie, you can end with like, how do you a tip on getting people to want to stay with that culture? So, Allison,
Yeah.
what's some things to consider when onboarding and your new clinician?
oh yes. Onboarding is my favorite. So this is where I like to nerd out. But I would say my hot tip for this is to find the balance between creating an efficient and effective onboarding process while also considering the human aspect of it, right? It's a balance. I've seen this especially in private practices that we've worked with who do a lot of telehealth or are completely remote. You have so many options, whether you are completely like in office or working remotely. There's so much opportunity to create an efficient process, but we have seen it go a little too far, right? So it's feeling a little robotic. It's feeling like checking boxes, knocking out the
Oh,
to-do
nobody wants to
list.
feel like a checklist.
No,
No.
nobody wants to feel like a checklist. The best thing that you can do in the onboarding process is greet your new employee with a friendly face. They need to feel that warmth on day one. You need to loop back into what your why of having a practice and growing your practice. you need to have those conversations and those discussions on day one. Yes, you need to complete your I-9 and your employment verification documents and all that good stuff. You need to stay compliant. That is obviously so important, but you need to be connecting on day one and never allow an employee to step away with not understanding what their next step is or having a lack of understanding of what is expected of them. Another piece of
Oh
this,
yeah, that's a terrible feeling. That
yes,
feeling of like, oh, am I doing a good job? What should I do next? I'm like kind of hanging here, and then you're new, so you don't want to. Sometimes you don't want to ask because you're like, uh, if I ask, are they going to think I'm not listening? Or they ask like they think I don't care? Like,
yeah,
yeah, it puts the new employee in a bad situation if they don't know the next step.
yeah. I think that day one just goes way further. There's the idea of first impressions. And I think that it makes such a great impact. I mean, I know there's studies and data that it's not coming to my head right now, to my brain right now, that tag day one into the longevity or the retention of that employee. I
Hmm.
think it's I would say probably their first 30 days that you really need to have a specific roadmap for them. It doesn't need to be perfect, but I think the more they know what is expected of them, and understanding where we're starting and where we're headed, where we're going. If that's you will see your first client in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, just having that understanding and that context to know, okay, this is like you said, this is what is expected of me. And now I know, where we're going with this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great tip, and that probably could be its own webinar or
Oh,
workshop.
oh,
Absolutely.
100%. Yes.
Brie, I want to end with retention. That could also be its own workshop.
Yes.
What is a tip on retention you have for the new? Like, I'm a new therapist and I'm thinking about hiring somebody, but I'm also worried about retaining people. How can you help me with that?
Honestly, it goes back to just treating them like a human, giving them a soft place to land, just being supportive. Like Allison said, that first 30 days is crucial, having the support there, having that roadmap, but also continuing that throughout their entire time with you and really treating them if you look at my personal philosophy, and I beat it like a dead horse. I say it constantly, but if you treat everything in business through a human first lens, you will have so much success. Just being able to do things in a light that promotes growth. And everyone grows differently, and that's okay. And that's the beauty of having a practice. You don't, if you and all your therapists are the same and you treat the same and you see the same clients and everything, that doesn't help anybody. So having, empowering your therapists to be their authentic selves, and in doing so, you can be your authentic self as well, and vice versa, is huge with retention.
Where can people find more about your services and how you help people hire and retain employees?
Yes, absolutely. So Bosco is, again, an operations management agency for mental health practices specifically, that supports practices from the operations assistant kind of day to day all the way up to fractional practice directing. You can find us at heybosco.com. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the things. But our website has really great blogs that we don't sugarcoat anything, and we don't gatekeep. We give all the information. Our email list is also great. We give a lot of great info. We have referral partners that come on and give their expertise as well. So highly recommend signing up for that and going to our blog and seeing what you can find out and how you can help grow either your solo or your group practice.
Wonderful. Brie and Allison, thank you so much for being a part of the show. This was a very valuable topic.
Thank you so much, James, for having us.
Thanks, James.
Okay, listeners, I want to encourage you to, well, if you are treating your employees like a checklist, stop. Stop it. Be more human and be relational. Be that place where they can get direction and know the next steps. So be more human and put your mission in motion. We'll see you next time. Before we end the show, I want to thank our pro-level sponsors for sponsoring the show: Humor Speaks, RevKey, The Practice Collab, Arc Integrated, Therasas CRM, Guest Compliance Consulting LLC, Private Practice Elevation, Freedom Business Solutions, Bosco LLC, Profit Comes First, River Street Studios, Wealth and Worth Within, Therapy Flow, and of course, CourseCreationStudio.com. If you're looking for businesses that can help you break through your therapy practice business bottlenecks, go to ScalingTherapistServices.com. Check out those proven businesses. We thank them for their support.